Imagine a life where failure is seen as a stepping stone rather than an obstacle. Most of us grow up being told to avoid failure at all costs. But what if failure is the key to unlocking your potential? In From Failure to Success, Martin Meadows flips the script on how we view failure. He emphasizes that failure is not something to fear, but rather a powerful tool that can propel us forward toward success. Many successful people didn't avoid failure. They embraced it, learned from it, and ultimately grew because of it. This book teaches us how to think about failure in a constructive way and how to transform setbacks into opportunities for growth. Whether it's in your career, personal life, or any pursuit, embracing failure is crucial for long-term success. Part 1. Understanding Failure and Success. Chapter 1. The Right Way to Think About Failure. In the journey to success, how we think about failure is one of the most important factors in determining whether we move forward or remain stuck. Meadows begins by emphasizing a critical truth. Failure is not a dead end, but rather a part of the process. It's common to see failure as something that signals the end of an effort, point of no return where defeat feels permanent. But Meadows explains that this mindset is one of the biggest obstacles to success. Instead of being a definitive conclusion, failure is a necessary experience that provides valuable lesson. The first thing to realize is that failure does not mean you lack the talent or ability to succeed. In fact, it often shows that you're pushing yourself beyond your comfort zone, where real growth happens. When we fail, it's easy to internalize the setback and think we are destined for failure in the long term. However, Meadows argues that this is a mistake. Failure is feedback. It tells you what doesn't work, what needs to be changed, and where improvements can be made. Every failure holds the seeds of future success if we choose to extract the lessons from it. Meadows introduces the concept of resilience as the cornerstone of long-term success. Success isn't about avoiding failure, it's about continuing to push forward in the face of it. The most successful people don't experience fewer failures, they simply have the courage to keep going. Resilience grows every time we get back up after a failure. Each stumble is an opportunity to build mental toughness and get closer to achieving our goals. The more we learn to embrace failure as a stepping stone rather than a stumbling block, the more empowered we become to succeed. Chapter 2. Common Misconceptions About Failure. Many people hold deep-rooted misconceptions about failure, and these false beliefs can prevent them from moving forward. In this chapter, Meadows addresses some of the most widespread myths about failure and explains why they are flawed. The first misconception is the belief that successful people never fail. It's easy to look at highly accomplished individuals and assume their path was smooth, but this is a dangerous illusion. In reality, successful people often experience more failures than the average person, but they don't let these setbacks stop them. They learn from their mistakes, adjust their approach, and persist until they get it right. Meadows stresses that success and failure are not opposites. Failure is a part of the process of achieving success. The key difference between successful people and those who give up is how they react to failure. The successful don't dwell on failure. They use it as a tool to improve. Another common myth is that failure is a sign of weakness or lack of ability. Meadows dismantles this notion, explaining that failure is often an indication that you are stretching yourself and attempting something ambitious. Those who never fail are likely those who never try anything new or challenging. Failure should not be seen as a reflection of your inherent abilities. Instead, it's a sign that you are pushing your limits and growing. Meadows also debunks the idea that once you fail, it's too late to recover. Many people think of failure as a permanent mark, something that defines them forever. But failure is not a final destination, simply a temporary detour. The only way failure becomes lasting is if you let it stop you. Meadows urges readers to understand that no matter how many times they fail, they can always bounce back, learn from the experience, and try again. In this sense, failure is not an ending, but a pause, offering valuable insights that can lead to future success. Chapter 3. The Psychology of Success and Failure. The way we think about failure is largely influenced by our mindset, And in this chapter, Meadows explores the psychological factors that shape how we perceive failure and success. Drawing on the concept of fixed versus growth mindsets, Meadows explains that our mindset plays a critical role in determining how we handle setbacks. People with a fixed mindset believe that their abilities are static and unchangeable. When they experience failure, they see it as proof that they lack the talent or intelligence needed to succeed. In their minds, failure is not just a temporary setback. It's a confirmation that they are not capable. This leads them to give up easily and avoid challenges, as they fear failure will expose their perceived inadequacies. In contrast, those with a growth mindset believe that their abilities can be developed and improved over time. They understand that failure is an inevitable part of the learning process, and they see it as an opportunity to grow. Instead of viewing failure as a reflection of their worth, people with a growth mindset see it as a tool for self-improvement. They embrace challenges, knowing that each failure brings them one step closer to mastery. Meadows argues that developing a growth mindset is essential if you want to transform failure into success. By shifting your perspective, you can begin to see failure as a stepping stone rather than a setback. The key is to understand that failure is not a reflection of who you are, but rather a reflection of where you are on your journey. Each failure brings with it valuable lessons that can help you improve and eventually succeed. Part 2. How to use failure to your advantage. Chapter 4. Power of persistence. In this chapter, Meadows emphasizes one of the most important qualities that separates successful people from those who give up: persistence. The ability to keep going in the face of failure is often the deciding factor between success and mediocrity. Meadows argues that it's not necessarily the smartest, most talented, or most privileged individuals who achieve great things in life. It's the ones who persist through adversity. Meadows provides numerous examples of famous figures who experienced repeated failures but ultimately succeeded as they refused to give up. Thomas Edison, for example, failed thousands of times before inventing the light bulb. When asked about his repeated failures, Edison famously replied, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." This mindset of persistence is what ultimately led to his success. The chapter explains that persistence isn't just about working harder. It's about maintaining focus and determination in the face of setback. Each failure is a step closer to success because it provides feedback that helps you refine your approach. Meadows encourages readers to view failure as a necessary part of the journey and to cultivate the resilience needed to push forward, no matter how many times they stumble. He also discusses practical strategies for building persistence. One of the most effective ways to develop persistence is to break your larger goals into smaller, manageable tasks. This approach prevents you from feeling overwhelmed by the scale of your ambitions and makes it easier to maintain motivation. Celebrating small victories along the way can also help sustain your persistence by reinforcing the progress you're making. Ultimately, Meadows argues that persistence is the key to turning failure into success. No matter how many times you fail, the only way to truly fail is to stop trying. By adopting a mindset of persistence, you increase your chances of achieving your goals. Chapter 5. Reframing failure. One of the most powerful tools for transforming failure into success is the ability to reframe how you think about failure. In this chapter, Meadows introduces the concept of reframing, which involves changing the way you interpret and respond to failure. Reframing failure means viewing it not as a personal shortcoming or a defeat, but as valuable feedback. Every failure contains a lesson about what didn't work, and by analyzing these lessons, you can adjust your approach and improve your chances of success in the future. Meadows explains that reframing failure removes the emotional sting that often accompanies setback, allowing you to remain objective and focused on growth. He shares practical techniques for reframing failure, starting with the practice of journaling. Writing about your failures allows you to reflect on them from a more detached perspective. Instead of dwelling on the negative emotions associated with failure, journaling helps you focus on the lessons you've learned and how you can apply them moving forward. Meadows also encourages readers to ask themselves specific questions after each failure, such as, what went wrong? What can I learn from this? And how can I do better next time? These questions shift your focus from self-criticism to self-improvement. By reframing failure as an opportunity to learn and grow, you become more resilient and better equipped to handle future challenges. The chapter concludes with the idea that failure is not something to be feared but embraced. The more you reframe failure as a necessary step on the road to success, the more empowered you become to take risks and pursue your goals with confidence. Chapter 6. Learning from Failure. Failure, as Meadows points out, is one of the most effective teachers in life. You know how to extract its lessons. In this chapter, he lays out a structured process for analyzing your failures to ensure they lead to growth rather than stagnation. The key is to reflect on each failure with honesty and self-awareness, rather than blaming external factors or sweeping your mistakes under the rug. Meadows explains that the first step in learning from failure is reflection. Take the time to think carefully about what went wrong. Ask yourself critical questions. What decisions led to this outcome? What could I have done differently? Were there warning signs I ignored? This reflection should focus not only on the events themselves, but also on your own role in those events. Next comes identifying the factors you could control. It's easy to get caught up in blaming external circumstances, but true growth happens when you focus on the aspects within your control. This might be your decision-making process, effort level, or the way you handled setbacks along the way. Meadows emphasizes that by zeroing in on what you can control, you empower yourself to make changes and avoid similar failures in the future. Finally, Meadows discusses the importance of making changes based on these insights. Learning from failure is not just about understanding what went wrong, it's about taking action to correct it. He advises creating a plan that addresses the mistakes you've identified and implementing changes to improve your chances of success next time. Whether it's developing new habits, improving your skills, or changing your mindset, these adjustments will help you grow and move closer to your goals. Part 3. Developing Mental Resilience. Chapter 7. Building Grit and Determination. In this chapter, Meadows focuses on the concept of grit, which he defines as the combination of passion and perseverance. It keeps you moving forward, even in the face of repeated failures. Grit is essential because it fuels the persistence needed to achieve long-term goals. Without it, even the most talented individuals can fall short when faced with adversity. Meadows explains that grit is what separates those who achieve great things from those who give up too soon. He cites examples of individuals like J.K. Rowling, who faced multiple rejections before finally achieving success with her Harry Potter series, and Steve Jobs, who was famously fired from the company he founded, but eventually returned to lead Apple to unprecedented success. These examples illustrate that determination and passion for one's goals are critical components of grit. To build grit, Meadows recommends setting clear long-term goals. These goals act as a North Star, giving you something to work toward even when the going gets tough. However, he stresses the importance of breaking these long-term goals into smaller, manageable steps. This makes the process less overwhelming and helps you maintain motivation as you achieve each small victory along the way. Additionally, Meadows encourages celebrating progress, not just the final outcome. By recognizing the steps you've taken, no matter how small, you reinforce your determination to keep going. This helps you stay focused on the bigger picture and prevents short-term setbacks from derailing your progress. Chapter 8. Developing a Growth Mindset. Building on the idea of mental resilience, Meadows explains that a growth mindset is crucial for turning failure into success. A growth mindset is the belief that abilities can be developed through effort and persistence, rather than being fixed traits. This mindset allows you to see failure not as a reflection of your abilities, but as an opportunity to learn and improve. People with a fixed mindset, on the other hand, believe that their talents and abilities are set in stone. As a result, failure feels like a personal shortcoming, something that reflects their inherent limitations. This often leads them to avoid challenges or give up when they encounter setbacks, believing that effort is futile. In contrast, people with a growth mindset understand that effort leads to improvement. When they fail, they don't see it as a sign that they're not good enough. They see it as part of the learning process. Meadows stresses that adopting a growth mindset will help you embrace challenges and persist through failures, because you recognize that each failure is simply another step toward growth and mastery. To cultivate a growth mindset, Meadows suggests starting by changing how you talk to yourself. Instead of saying, "I'm not good at this," try, "I'm not good at this yet, but I can improve with practice." By reframing your internal dialogue, you shift your focus from your current limitations to your potential for growth. Chapter 9. Cultivating Self-Discipline. Self-discipline is the glue that holds your efforts together, especially in the face of failure. Meadows argues that without self-discipline, it's easy to give up when things get tough. In this chapter, he explains how self-discipline is essential for overcoming failure and achieving long-term success. Self-discipline is about doing what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it. Meadows emphasizes that successful people aren't necessarily more motivated than others. They've simply developed the discipline to take consistent action, even when motivation fades. This is particularly important after a failure, when the temptation to give up is strongest. To cultivate self-discipline, Meadows advises creating daily habits that keep you focused on your goal. These habits might include setting aside specific times each day to work on your goals, breaking tasks into smaller steps, and maintaining a clear sense of purpose. The more disciplined you become in your daily life, the easier it will be to stay on track, even after setback. Meadows also discusses the importance of removing distractions that can undermine your discipline. This might involve creating a distraction-free workspace, limiting your time on social media, or setting boundaries with people who distract you from your goals. By eliminating distractions, you create an environment that supports your self-discipline and helps you stay focused. Finally, Meadows highlights the power of accountability. He suggests finding an accountability partner or group can help you stay disciplined by providing support and encouragement. When you know someone else is counting on you to follow through, it's easier to stay committed, even in the face of failure. Chapter 10. Managing Negative Emotions. Failure often brings up a host of negative emotions: frustration, disappointment, anger, and sometimes even shame. In this chapter, Meadows explains that while these emotions are natural, they can be managed so that they don't derail your progress. One of the most effective techniques for managing negative emotions is mindfulness. Meadows describes mindfulness as the practice of staying present and observing your thoughts and feelings without judgment. By practicing mindfulness, you can become more aware of your emotional responses to failure and learn to manage them in a healthy way. For example, when you experience frustration after a setback, mindfulness allows you to pause and reflect before reacting. Instead of letting the frustration consume you, you can acknowledge it, understand where it's coming from, and then choose a more constructive response. Another technique Meadows recommends is reframing negative emotion. Instead of seeing your feelings of disappointment or frustration as permanent, recognize that they are temporary and part of the process. He encourages readers to remind themselves that negative emotions are a normal response to failure, but don't have to define the outcome. By learning to manage your emotions, you can maintain a clear head and continue taking productive action, even after a failure. Part 4. Practical Exercises to Transform Failures into Success. Chapter 11. Failure Tracking and Reflection. Tracking your failures is a powerful exercise that helps you learn from them in a systematic way. In this chapter, Meadows introduces the concept of failure tracking, which involves keeping a log of your setbacks and reflecting on what you can learn from each one. By writing down your failures, you gain clarity about the patterns in your setbacks and can identify areas for improvement. Meadows explains that this practice helps you take a non-emotional approach to failure, allowing you to focus on the lessons rather than the disappointment. He encourages readers to set aside time each week to review their failure log and ask themselves what they've learned, what they could do differently next time, and how they can turn each setback into an opportunity for growth. This exercise ensures that you're continuously improving and making progress, even when things don't go as planned. Chapter 12. Visualization Techniques for Resilience. Visualization is a mental tool that can help you build resilience by reinforcing your goals and maintaining focus after failure. In this chapter, Meadows explains how to use visualization techniques to stay motivated, even in the face of setback. Visualization involves imagining yourself overcoming obstacles and achieving your goals. Meadows explains that by creating a mental blueprint of success, you program your mind to stay focused on your desired outcome, even when things don't go as planned. He encourages readers to visualize not only their ultimate success, but also the steps they will take to get there, including how they will overcome setbacks. By mentally rehearsing these scenarios, you build the resilience needed to keep going when failure strikes. Chapter 13. Failure Preparation Techniques. In this final chapter, Meadows encourages readers to prepare for failure before it happens. This doesn't mean expecting to fail, but rather being mentally and emotionally prepared to handle setbacks when they occur. One technique he suggests is to anticipate potential obstacles and think about how you will respond. By mentally preparing for challenges, you're less likely to be caught off guard when they arise. Meadows also recommends practicing self-compassion, reminding yourself that failure is a normal part of the process and that it doesn't define your worth. By preparing for failure, you create a mental framework that helps you stay calm and focused, even when things don't go as planned. Conclusion. Turning setbacks into stepping stones. In From Failure to Success, Martin Meadows teaches that failure is not the end, simply a step along the way to success. Every setback offers an opportunity to learn, grow, and refine your approach. By reframing failure, managing negative emotions, and using tools like persistence, grit, and self-discipline, you can turn any failure into a stepping stone toward your ultimate goals. Meadows reminds us that failure only becomes permanent if you quit. The most successful people in the world are those who persist through their failures, learn from them, and keep moving forward. By embracing failure as a necessary part of the journey, you set yourself up for long-term success.